We are here with Eliana Cuevas, the renowned and acclaimed Latin jazz artist who has many accolades and awards, including the National Jazz Award, Toronto Independent Music Award, the Independent Music Award for Latin Album from the United States, and also nominated for Best World Solo Artist at the Canadian Folk Music Awards. Can you tell us a little bit about the choice of songs that you have performed today?
Most of the songs that I perform today are from my latest album, Espejo, which I released a couple of years ago. And they're mostly original compositions. There's only one cover that I did today. Other than that, all the songs are either mine or are songs that I've collaborated with someone else in writing, except for one song that was written by my producer, Jeremy Ledbetter, and pianist, who was also at the show, and which is Toque Osito. But yeah, they're from my latest album, Espejo.
Now, espejo means mirror in English, so can you tell us how you came about in choosing this particular title for the album, and what does it signify?
Okay, the second song we performed today, called Agua, Cangrejo y Sal, it has a phrase in it that says, espejo frente a espejo, perdido en la eternidad, which means mirror in front of mirror, lost in eternity. And what it signifies to me is that creativity is infinite. So, you know, to name an album Espejo frente a espejo, perdido en la eternidad, or, you know, anything like that would be too long. So I just chose the first word from that phrase, but that is what it alludes to, and that's the idea.
What do you say? Would you agree that it signifies also reflection, in the sense that you have this continuity from one image to another?
Absolutely, yes. It also can signify that, and you know.
So it's a very good metaphor.
Exactly. It can be a bit of there can be a bit of introspection as well. You know, depending on the song, especially, you can hear, you know, a bit about my life too, right? So, yeah.
Always nice to have, right?
Yeah.
Let me mention that you did win the Independent Music Award for Latin Album in the United States for this particular album. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's
it.
congratulations. That's wonderful. Now, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about how you came together with this particular group of musicians that you performed today?
Sure. I am originally from Venezuela, and I've been in Canada now for about 20 years. I came to study English in my teenage years, and I decided to stay. I love this place. But when I came, I ended up, I love dancing in salsa music, and I ended up going to this Latin club to dance with like fake ID and everything, and it was there where I basically entered into the live music scene, because I met musicians. There was a live band performing, and I asked them if they needed a singer, and they kind of led me to another band that was starting, and that's how I, little by little, started to meet musicians, and eventually ended up with my band.
When did you first know that you could sing? And did you actually study singing, vocals? How did you come about becoming actually a vocalist and a composer?
I always loved singing, and I also, since maybe when I was like 9 or 10, I would like to make up songs on my own, and you know, I didn't really know that was called composing. I didn't put much thought behind that, but I was inspired, and I loved the idea of writing, and I would sit down and listen to songs and examine them and try and figure out, oh, so this is, you know, there's something that repeats, which is the chorus, and then you have a verse, and trying to dissect songs that I liked and then trying to imitate, and that's basically how I began to compose. I always loved singing. You know, it wasn't so much about can I sing or can I not, you know. Turns out, you know, that it looks like I'm doing pretty good, but but what drove me was just the fact that I loved it so much, and that I still do. And songwriting is the same thing. You know, I love being able to express my own ideas, my thoughts, my feelings through music, what I see around the world through music, and through my voice.
Now, you are based here in Toronto, is that correct?
Correct.
The group of musicians that perform with you tonight, is this a particular group that you have been with for some time?
Yeah, I've worked with them for several years, and there are other musicians that I also have worked with for quite a while. I would say that in Toronto we have an amazing scene. There are lots of wonderful musicians. So there's about 2 sets of my band that you could, you know, say that exist, and I work with them, you know, like a couple of bass players, a couple of drummers, percussionists as well, and I've known them for a very long time, and they know my music, and I love them all.
And I know that you have also collaborated on many occasions with a very renowned and award nominated artists. And can you tell us a little bit about your collaboration with these other artists?
Well, there have been different people that I've had a chance to perform with in the past, and I think it would be hard for me to think of all of them. But I guess the most recent that I could mention is Jane Bennett. I was able to participate in her latest album, which won a Juno most recently. And but aside from that, oh my goodness, it would be hard for me to remember everyone. Celso Machado. I've sung with Alex Cuba. Jesse Cook, lots of different people. Yeah,
many talented artists.
Yeah.
How do you describe the genre of music that you perform? I know that you're known as the Latin music queen of Canada, Canada's Latin music queen. So, can you tell us a little bit about the genre, and if this is including primarily jazz, or does it involve other fusions?
It's Latin American music, right? That's I'm a songwriter, and I sing Latin American music, and then there is an influence of jazz, there is an influence of Brazilian music, and I think also my musicians, they have different backgrounds, and they also bring in a bit of their own influences when we perform together. In Toronto, there is an amazing scene of musicians from all over the world, and I think the fact that I've lived here for 20 years and that I've been able to perform with so many different musicians that come from so many different backgrounds, that has influenced my music as well, right? So it's hard for me to call it, in a specific genre, but I think the main thing that I could say is I'm a songwriter, Latin American songwriter, and that my music, revolves around the Latin American rhythms with influences of many different things.
And as far as internationally, I know that you have toured considerably. Can you tell us a little bit about your international exposure and how you compare that with the Canadian scene?
Wow.
The Canadian music scene, I should say.
Wow, that's a tough one. It's hard for me to compare because when I've toured, I've never spent enough time in any of these places, right, to actually get a sense of what their scene is like. I mean, I think everybody kind of knows, right, for example, that New York has an amazing scene, but here in Toronto, we have incredible musicians from all over the place, and that's something that we should be proud of. I do think that we need more venues, especially when it comes to the world music scene. That's something that we could use more of in Toronto, that maybe you can find more of in Europe and in some other countries, right, that I've traveled to. But I am very happy, even though I've had the opportunity to travel a lot and to visit many different places. I have to say that I'm very proud to be part of the music scene that we have in this city, and that I think it's growing and evolving. And I think, little by little, all of these musicians that are here are going to come up with our Canadian world music, or I don't know if you want to call it Toronto sound. We're going to come up with something that will show over the years, right? Traveling around, you can meet all kinds of different people. You can see, many different venues, but I have never actually spent enough time to know what the scene is like.
Do you believe, and I'd like your opinion on this as a musician and an artist, do you believe that the Canadian music or sound, that there is a distinct sound to the Canadian music or compositions, and if that is recognized on the international stage?
I don't think it may be recognized quite yet, but I certainly think that there is something that is developing, and I think it is a product of our multicultural city, and the fact that there are so many different musical genres here, and so many, great musicians in each of these genres. It's not just people who play a little bit of this style or that style. There are great musicians, right, that play different styles. So.
And finally, I would like to ask you, Eliana, what is your next project and what are you working on at the present?
A new album. Yes, that's something.
Do you
that
have
I'm
a title for it or
No,
not?
not yet. No, not yet. I usually pick that at the end. Once I hear the album and all the songs, then
All right.
choose something.
Eliana, the second last song that you performed was quite amazing. Can you tell us what is the title of the song and in English what it means and the sounds that you sang? Can you tell us a little bit about how that developed?
Okay, that song is called El Tucucito, and El Tucucito is a hummingbird that you find in the plains of Venezuela. I'm originally from Venezuela, as I mentioned before, right? And El Tucucito is one of the songs that I also mentioned earlier that was written by Jeremy Ledbetter, who plays the piano and who also produced my latest record. And that song is based in the joropo, which is a Venezuelan folk rhythm, and I'm trying to imitate the flute because in Venezuela, quite often when you hear joropo, you hear a flute making, those kinds of sounds. So that's what I'm trying to imitate.
It was unbelievable, quite astonishing and wonderful. Eliana, finally, I'd like to ask you about the project that you have online, I believe, which is titled Poetry and Melody. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you came to, come up with this idea?
Well, that was actually a few years ago that I did that, and it was a wonderful experience. My idea was to invite people out there who write poems, right, to reach out to me if they wish that I gave music to their poetry. And it was quite a wonderful experience, and the idea behind that was just simply connecting with other artists from a different genre and just exploring, seeing what would happen, right? So that was it. That was the idea behind that, and it was wonderful.
Very good. Thank you very much.